The world didn't become dangerous overnight. It became dangerous quietly while we were looking elsewhere. For decades, America was the arsenal of democracy. When war came, factories surged. Weapons flowed. Allies were supplied. Deterrence was unquestioned. Today, that confidence is cracking. If a major power war began tomorrow, how long could the United States actually fight? Not in theory, not on paper, but in ammunition, ships, workers, and supply lines. Ukraine exposed a hard truth. Modern war burns through weapons faster than modern systems can replace them. Factories can't scale overnight. Supply chains snap. Budgets stall. Skilled workers are missing. This isn't a question of American courage. It's a question of American capacity. And when capacity weakens, doubt grows. In allies, in adversaries, in the system itself. If you want to understand the risks shaping the next decade, stay with me. Because before we talk about solutions, we need to face the problem clearly. To do that, we need to define what's actually breaking. When people hear the phrase defense industrial base, it sounds abstract, bureaucratic, distant from real life, but it isn't. It's the system that turns national decisions into physical power. The factories that build ships, the lines that produce ammunition, the software that connects sensors to shooters, the workers who weld, code, assemble, and maintain everything the military depends on. For a long time, America assumed this system would always be there. Reliable, scalable, ready when needed. That assumption is no longer safe. The defense industrial base is not just 5 big contractors. It's thousands of suppliers, many of them small, some of them single-point failures. Businesses that survive only if demand is steady and predictable. But defense demand hasn't been steady. Budgets stall, programs pause, factories turn on and off. Over time, capacity doesn't just slow, it disappears. And once it's gone, it doesn't come back quickly. To understand why this erosion happened, we have to go backward to the choices that once seemed logical and quietly reshaped everything. For much of the Cold War, the logic was simple. Prepare for the worst, build for scale, maintain excess capacity. Then the Cold War ended. The Berlin Wall fell, the Soviet Union collapsed, and a powerful idea took hold, the peace dividend. America could finally shift resources elsewhere. Bases were closed, factories consolidated, defense companies merged. Efficiency replaced redundancy. At the time, these choices made sense. Great power war felt distant. Globalization promised resilience. Supply chains stretched across borders in the name of lower costs. But efficiency has a hidden price. It trades resilience for optimization. It assumes stability. It assumes time. Shipbuilding offers a clear example. By the 1,960 seconds, the United States stepped back. Japan stepped in. Then South Korea. Now China dominates production. America didn't need to build the most ships. It needed to build reliably. On time, on budget. That system stopped working. Meanwhile, defense manufacturing lost its priority. Munitions became an afterthought. Funding surged and vanished. Suppliers opted out. The system didn't collapse dramatically. It thinned quietly until war returned. And when war returned, the gaps were suddenly visible. The shock came fast. Ukraine didn't just reveal a war. It revealed a stress test. Artillery shells were fired by the thousands, day after day, at a pace no Western factory was built to sustain. America discovered something uncomfortable. Its production rate was a fraction of battlefield demand, not because the technology was lacking, but because the capacity was, factories couldn't surge, supply chains couldn't stretch, skilled workers couldn't be summoned overnight. This wasn't a failure of strategy. It was a failure of preparation. And Ukraine wasn't the only signal. Shipyards missed deadlines. Submarine production lagged. Costs climbed while output stalled. Each delay carried meaning, not just for planners in Washington, but for adversaries watching closely. Deterrence depends on credibility. Credibility depends on delivery, and delivery depends on industry. If you can't replenish what you use, power becomes temporary. And temporary power invites testing. If this moment feels sudden, it isn't. It's the result of deeper forces, hidden beneath contracts, budgets, and balance sheets. That's what we need to uncover next. What failed wasn't a single factory. It was the system. At the center is a fragile mechanism, demand that lurches, funding that arrives late, and suppliers that can't survive uncertainty. Many critical components come from small firms, single facilities, single production lines, sometimes a single skilled team. They depend on consistency. But defense budgeting rarely provides it. Continuing resolutions freeze decisions. Shutdown threats ripple outward. Contracts pause. So businesses adapt or they leave. Munitions are the clearest example. They aren't the most profitable. They aren't the most glamorous. And for years, they weren't prioritized. When demand surged, executives couldn't even map their own supply chains. Not because they were negligent, but because no one had asked them to care. Global supply chains added another layer of risk. Efficient, cost-effective, and brittle. COVID exposed this across the economy. Ukraine exposed it in war. Industrial power doesn't turn on like a switch. It grows slowly, it withers quietly. And when you need it most, it either exists or it doesn't. That brings us to the next pressure point, the human one. Machines don't build weapons. People do. And here, the shortages are acute. Shipyards lack welders. Factories lack electricians. Production lines wait on skills that take years to train. You can't hire experience overnight. You can't surge craftsmanship on demand. Raising pay helps. But pay isn't everything. High cost of living pushes workers away. Long commutes drain retention. Other industries offer easier paths. Even when wages rise, supply stays tight. This isn't just a defense problem. It's an American manufacturing problem. Some regions adapt better than others. Local training pipelines matter. Community colleges matter. State coordination matters. Where those systems align, capacity holds. Where they don't, production slips. Technology offers partial relief. Advanced manufacturing, robotics, automation, all reduce reliance on scarce labor. But America is behind. Allies like Japan and South Korea moved faster. The result is a second bottleneck. Even when money arrives, people don't. And without people, reform stalls. Which raises the most important question: who actually feels the cost of this failure? You do. Your community does. Your allies do. When the industrial base falters, the consequences ripple outward. Weapons arrive late. Ships are delayed. Missiles don't reach those who need them. The cost isn't abstract. It's tangible. And the stakes are high. Adversaries notice. Doubts creep into alliances. Deterrence erodes slowly, almost invisibly. This is why reform matters. Not just for planners in Washington, not just for generals or contractors, but for every citizen who counts on security to be real, not theoretical. Solutions exist. They require policy focus, funding consistency, workforce investment, advanced manufacturing, and careful oversight. Even small improvements compound. Better factories, better supply chains, better skills, better software. It's about ensuring the promise of defense matches the reality of the battlefield. Next, we'll look at the global consequences of a fragile defense industrial base. The fragility of America's defense industrial base doesn't stay within US borders. It ripples across the globe. Allies depend on American production. Partners count on steady supply. When that supply falters, they scramble. Nations rethink their own defenses. They hedge, they diversify. Adversaries notice too. They see cracks, opportunities. A weaker industrial base emboldens them. Conflict becomes more tempting. The world isn't static. Wars are interconnected. A shortfall in artillery here can affect naval operations there. A delay in missiles can shift strategic calculations thousands of miles away. America's capacity or lack thereof has real geopolitical consequences. It shapes deterrence, influence alliance, signals resolve, or its absence. The stakes aren't theoretical. They're tangible, immediate, and they demand understanding before we can plan the future. Next, we'll explore what that future might look like: good, middling, and worst-case scenarios. The future of America's defense industrial base isn't set in stone. It can unfold in multiple directions. 3 possible scenarios emerge. Scenario 1, optimistic recovery. America invests deeply in its industrial base. Factories are modernized. Supply chains are made resilient. Workforce training programs expand. Public-private partnerships strengthen. Innovation from the commercial sector feeds into defense. Munitions production accelerates, meeting wartime demand. The defense sector thrives, reinforcing deterrence and power projection. Allies trust the U.S. to deliver. Adversaries hesitate. Scenario 2, steady improvement but incomplete. Reforms start, but they don't happen fast enough. Supply chain resilience increases, but not enough to avoid gaps in critical moments. The workforce improves, but talent shortages persist. Technological innovation helps, but manufacturing capabilities remain limited. The U.S. military still struggles to meet rapid wartime demand. Allies remain committed, but begin to diversify their sources of defense supply. Adversaries test the limits of American resolve, but the U.S. still holds a significant edge. Scenario 3, continued decline and vulnerability. The lack of sustained investment continues. Factories close, supply chains remain fragile, and skilled workers leave the sector. Reform efforts stall due to political gridlock and short-term thinking. America's defense capabilities weaken. Increased competition from adversaries, particularly China, fills the gaps. Deterrence diminishes, and allies grow anxious. The U.S. military struggles to maintain readiness in the face of rising global threats. The world enters a new era of instability, where a weakened America invites greater aggression from adversaries. Each scenario presents its own challenges and risks. The decisions made today will determine which future unfolds. The question is not whether America can change, it's whether it will act quickly enough to secure its place as the dominant global power. Now, let's turn to the conclusion and a final call to action. Shall I proceed? The situation is clear. America's defense industrial base is at a crossroads. If action is taken now, we can rebuild, strengthen, and lead the world in defense. If ignored, we risk a future where power fades, credibility weakens, and adversaries test our resolve. This isn't just about weapons or factories. It's about national security. It's about the safety of allies. It's about protecting the future for generations to come. The clock is ticking. Reform is possible, but only if it starts today. The right decisions made now will create a more secure tomorrow. But the longer we wait, the harder the task becomes. So it's time to ask, are we ready to face the new challenges of a dangerous world? Or will we allow complacency to invite aggression? The answer begins with action. Now,